This week, 2 D&D book titles have been leaked, and we talk about putting story in your combat encounters, plus a lot of rambling. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. It still makes me feel cheesy, but I love it inside too. This is the show brought to you in partnership by two wonderful partners. The Dice Dungeon are your one-stop shop for all things D&D paraphernalia, which is my new way of describing them. It started off as a brilliant place to get dice, and they still are, but you can also get actual D&D books, things like spell cards, and all of the likes. If you want to go and have a look at their wares, why am I saying this like I'm a 1920s salesman? If you want to go and look at their stuff that you can buy from them, then there's a link in the description below. And of course, you can use the code WeSpeakCommon to get 10% off your entire order. My recent purchase, which I have not stopped talking about for literal weeks, were the Plain Shard Shadowfell dice. Honestly, I cannot tell you how gorgeous those dice are. The picture doesn't do them justice. They're even, if you think they look good on the screen, they look even better in person. So that's my recommendation. We'll talk more about them a little bit later. The other patron, of course, is Describe, spelled D-S-C-R-Y-B. Describe.com is the place to go if you struggle with creative writing. If you're running a homebrew D&D game and you long for that box text as a warm blanket to make sure you're describing things well, then Describe is the place to go. They've got hundreds and thousands of scenes of places, creatures, and spells as well. There's items added to that list very, very soon. They'll be coming out eventually. Over 1,500 scenes and counting. They add them all the time. And if you want to get access to all of them, rather than the limited free selection that you get just by going to have a look at the website right now, then you can subscribe and use the code COMMON for 10% off every single month as part of your membership. Again, links in the description below, so check them out. That's Describe, DSCRYB.com. The last people that we should mention, and I should probably say probably the most important people that we should mention, are, of course, the beautiful patrons who support the show directly. If you want to be a part of that group and get access to our private Discord server, then there's a link below as well. And of course, you get extra goodies as and when they are created. There's been quite a few these last few weeks, including right now you can go and grab yourself a copy of the Expanded Poisoned Condition, which is, was inspired by one of the topics on this show. So if you want to go and grab that, that's on the Patreon too. And actually, today's topic comes from a Patreon. But before we get into that, I should say hello to my wonderful guest, Wesley. Hello.
Hello. I am here. I'm hither.
You're hither doth thou you are.
I thought I would say something fancy just for the wares, right, that I heard earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
Leaning into that bit.
Don't know where that came from. I don't know why I went into 1920
Just business
style,
speech, okay? Just getting into I don't know.
It's been a slow day for me. I still feel like I'm like half asleep, and I know the heat doesn't help either. It's very hot at the moment here.
I'm slightly dying.
It's like I'm melting. I'm melting into everything that I do, to the point where I'm either literally melting or both. Like, my brain is melting as well. I can't form sentences, which is good when you want to do a podcast. So let's see how this goes.
Just can't have a fan on. It's just
I'm sorry.
Your normal luxuries. It's a no-go.
I'm sorry. The sound would be too much.
I miss working from an air-conditioned office.
The last office I worked in, the air conditioning, it had air conditioning, but not upstairs. So it only had air conditioning in, because obviously it was a radio station. So it had air conditioning in the studios and in the racks room, which was like the best place ever. It was like a walk-in freezer. It was amazing. But upstairs was the hottest place in the world. Like, we had new windows installed, and even that didn't help. I'm so glad I'm not there this summer.
Yeah,
So.
that does not sound good. I've been lucky enough to be in areas mostly with air conditioning. Same principle though. When I worked at a casino, just as a note, people can now know this. On the bottom floor where all the customers were, you had air conditioning, but when you had to go upstairs to do anything, just the worst. You're just like, I don't want to go up there. I'm gonna die. Because same thing, massive windows, and it just the whole place was boiling. So when they have to like move inventory and stuff, you're just like, can you do it? No, please, because I don't want to today.
No, I totally get that. I loved your casino uniform. I miss you wearing that. That was
I had a
so
little
fancy.
waistcoat.
Yeah.
Little waistcoat. I'm a waistcoat kind of guy anyway. I'm not a full suit.
Really?
Yeah, prefer waistcoats.
No, I like the full thing. I like to have the option to take a blazer off and have the waistcoat on underneath. I like to get progressively less smart as like an evening goes on. So like I'll start with the full blazer and the waistcoat and the tie and everything, and then by the end of the evening it'll be just me in a shirt with my sleeves rolled up. You know,
it's like help.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
but
we've gone way off topic.
We have. How is your D&D life at the moment? How's it going?
Well, I'm pretty sure you're aware I'm a bit starved, and we had a small one shot where I joined in on, which was fun because I joined you and I got to play. It's not really an NPC because it was originally going to be.
I should say as well, before you go too deep into this, Sam will probably hear this.
Oh, right.
So bear that in mind.
It was originally going to be an NPC. It is no longer.
No.
So I'm wondering how much I can say now.
So Sam's got a one-on-one game that I run for him, and it's come to the point where I was always planning to have people come and join and like come for a bit and then leave for a bit. And he said when you appeared halfway through the session, he was like, "Oh, I guessed that it would be Wesley that would be the first person to join." But I think he was suitably shocked that it was this session, and you're with him now to form a party for a short amount of time. Who knows how long?
Dun, dun. I get to be a little mentor as well, which makes me really happy.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool.
Fun dynamic.
I think I've said this before, and I think I've said it on the podcast, but I think that the 3 people as a party is the ideal size, and you've just got he's got an NPC that travels with him at the moment, and so you've now joined. So there's now 3 of you sort of having conversations, and that's going to be a fun dynamic. Mm-hmm. And that game's so like chilled and relaxed because it's just like a little extra thing that we do. It's funny. It feels like one of the best ones that I run because it's so relaxed, but it's got all of the aspects of every D&D game I run, but there's no pressure.
Yeah, so, I feel like when there are less people, it does like put a lot less pressure on it all. You can just relax a little bit, which is fun.
But we haven't played anything else, have we? Because we took a break from... We're on a 2-week break from Descent because James needs to prep the final session. He's like, I need a little bit longer to prep the final game. So
okay.
We're waiting for that. And then
we didn't get anything. We haven't got anything this weekend. We didn't have anything last weekend.
No, well, I thought TOA was happening this weekend, but Ray's on vacation and we were going to do our Spelljammer game. But I had some stuff that had to be done that had to happen this weekend. So that got pushed. Life got in the way of that one. But it looks like the next 2 weekends in a row are going to be TOA, which is good because I want us to really start making some progress there.
Into the jungle, possibly to the port. I don't know if we'll get there in a session.
In the 2 weeks,
so.
I reckon you might get there. I hope so. In those next 2 sessions, you should.
Fingers crossed.
The way I'm planning.
I want to get a raft and start paddling. Okay?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
That's fair. But yeah, so we'll get some D&D games going, but I've also got like other stuff going on and I'm like, I just want to play D&D and like TOA as well. Like I feel like I want to do a stint. I want to do at least 2 months where we play TOA every week so that we like delve into it deeper because I feel like we're only just scratching the surface of it and I'm hungry for more.
For people to get into the actual like meat of the campaign rather than the little bit of like, we're in the paddling pool at the moment and we're still dying in the paddling pool, mind you.
You really are, like, though, because you decided to go, like, this is the thing. You decided to go to an area of the map where there's nothing. You're like, we're going to go up there and experiment and see what the jungle's like. And I was like, okay, that'll be fine. I was like, that'll last a couple of sessions. But you actually went for a really big excursion. So I was like, okay, well, let's make the jungle interesting for this. And we have, well, that has happened.
Very.
But I'm like, you've been playing for like, what, like 10, 11 sessions now? And you're still not quite sure where you're going? Yeah.
We've done nothing.
And you've had 2 deaths.
And 2 deaths. I mean, we've had some really cool... well, the mine that we went into, which had the time temporal loop where it went back on itself, that was really cool, but it was like 1 session.
Yeah, so as a note for anyone running TOA, my TOA document is available on Patreon for free. Anybody, you don't have to be a patron, you can go and get that if you're running Tomb of Annihilation. And the one thing that's not in there is what to do with the mines in Chult, because it's something I didn't think about. And then James made a dwarf and was interested in the mines, and I was like, oh shit, I need to do something.
It's
like
going
this.
to happen.
There's a really good supplement on DM's Guild for fleshing those out, and that's what that mine was one of those.
It was really fun. It was a very fun concept, and I really did enjoy it.
I was really excited to run it because it's a time loop as well as something I've been really I've wanted to run for a long time. Yeah, like
working it out. I won't go into too much detail because people might want to like grab it. But working it out and going through the process and just having like scenes in there, it was a lot of fun.
It was also as well a really good way to get you guys used to each other dying without the consequences, because that game is very death heavy. And it will be going through it. There's no way getting around that. It's kind
of a taster to, if you do something dumb, you will die.
Yeah, especially later on, because like when you delve into the jungle, there are locations for you to like go to, and this is a thing. Everybody said to me at one point or another in the last 2 weeks, I'm really enjoying it. I'm not bored of the jungle, but I'm worried that at some point we might get bored of the jungle. And I've said, yeah, I hear you. I understand. That's one of the main like tricks of this campaign, but also bear in mind that at the moment you've put yourselves in an area where there isn't anything for you to go and explore, and when you leave port the second time and go in the right direction
to where we're meant to go, there
is stuff like there's locations and things, and you will find those things a lot more frequently than I think you will. So unless you just like, I don't know, if you decide to change your direction 1 hex away, that'd be annoying. But yeah, so I think it was a good chance to really get you used to the idea that if you find a shrine and you go in and there's a trap, it might just blow you up. But you didn't actually die because of the time loop. So that was really, really good. I liked that a lot. Before we jump into our topic, I know we've been chatting for like 15 minutes anyway, but before we jump into the main topic, have you seen I know you've seen them because I sent them to you, the spoilers for the 2 new books?
Right, so I have not jumped too heavily into them.
Okay.
Just as a warning, before you're like go into it and I'm like, oh no.
That's fine. There's not a lot of information out there. If you don't want to know what the 2 leaked books are, skip forward 5 minutes, maybe maximum. I'll give you a second to just do that. Yeah.
Oh, so nice of you to give this time.
I know. I'm a benevolent god. So 2 books got put on Amazon. Their titles, obviously we haven't seen their covers or anything. Their titles and their descriptions, and that's it. That's all we've got. Oh, and their release dates. So title, description, release date, that's all we've got of the next 2 books. Now, bear in mind that the end of last year / start of this year, whenever it was, we found out, or the community found through an interview or a press release or whatever, that there was going to be 4 D&D book releases this year. So these would be the second and third, meaning we're still waiting for one more. We also heard that one of them would be a classic setting. So the leaks are as follows. The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, a Feywild adventure. Which is, I think, I have not seen anyone say anything other than, this is great, we need more Feywild content.
Feywild!
I know.
Yes!
I know.
Woo-hoo!
And sorry, how typical is it that we've started doing Feywild stuff in our current campaign, and by the time we finish our campaign, this book will come out?
Yep. This always happens.
Always happens.
It
Anyway.
always happens with us.
The description says, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight is D&D's next big adventure storyline that brings the wicked whimsy of the Feywild to 5th edition for the first time. Tune into D&D Live 2021, presented by G4 on July 16th and 17th for details, including new characters, monsters, mechanics, and story hooks suitable for players of all ages and experience levels. Releases
really
September
excited.
21st. Yeah, I'm really excited, and especially if this is going to go the way I think it's going to go, this will be in the same vein as Icewind Dale, Waterdeep, Dragon Heist, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Descent into Avernus, Baldur's Gate. Like, it will be a setting guide as well as an adventure, and that is good stuff.
Yeah, really good. I love the Feywild concept of these like incredibly powerful creatures that just do things at their whim because they just, they find it interesting or they're bored one day. I don't know. I love it.
We were talking about it the other day, and there's so much potential for stuff in there, but it's also one of those weird areas where it's like, oh, how do we talk about how do we run an adventure around a creature that could just change their mind at the drop of a hat and stuff like that. So it'll be really cool to see what they put in this book, and hey, it'll be good to talk more about the Feywild in the coming months. The other book is Curriculum of Chaos, which is the Strixhaven D&D Magic the Gathering setting book. So think Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica and Odysseys of Theros, but obviously if you don't know anything about Strixhaven, it is a giant wizard school. So that one's coming out in November, but it will also be presented at D&D Live July 16th and 17th, and it literally just says Curriculum of Chaos is an upcoming D&D release set in the Magic the Gathering world of Strixhaven. So it says includes character options, monsters, mechanics, story hooks, and more. If it's a set like Odysseys and like Guildmaster's Guide, I think it will be a really good book, and I'm really interested in it because, hey, magic schools are my jam.
I mean, it sounds really cool. I didn't know that Strixhaven was a magical school. I'm not as hooked up on the D&D lore.
Yeah, it's just a school for like all the Planeswalkers. I don't know much about it. I just know it from the because Strixhaven is the current Magic the Gathering set that's out right now.
Okay.
And it's like the Planeswalkers learning magic and
right. So
being
they're just going to do a
Planeswalkers.
side thing. Because I know that they added some like character classes as well from Ravnica, didn't they? So
yeah, Ravnica had subclasses. Theros gave us mythic actions and mythic encounters, which is a really cool concept that I don't see used ever. And James and I use it, or will be using it in our big boss fights. And I think that if you don't know what mythic encounters are, look them up in Odysseys. They're so cool. It basically you kill the creature and they get like a second stage and get access to second actions and things. It's really interesting.
It's a real boss fight.
Yeah. So it'll be cool to see if they bring some subclasses or like maybe some wizard subclasses or maybe some special magic items or new maybe there'll be some new spells. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
They do.
I mean, they do get all the stuff, so could we just tone that back a bit? It's just spread out.
All right, fine. See. But I mean, there's got to be something there, right? There's got to be something for everyone. But I don't know. I'm interested. I think it'll be really cool. And if it's a good setting as well, then it sounds like the perfect place to run Warthog. Which the OG listeners will. They'll know
that wonderful little
about.
Campaign that you made.
Well, it's going to happen.
What one shot?
Anyway, so it's worth just mentioning that those are out there and those exist, and I'm very excited. And we'll talk about them more in the future. But we've
actual topic.
We've gone on. Let's talk about the actual topic. So, new patron joined this week, Eldritch Barkeep. Fantastic name on the Discords. I use the Discord names just in case people don't want their real names out there. But they have said, something that I found super helpful and would love to hear about is mixing narrative and encounters. So there's a couple of things here. I think before we jump into the meat of it, your encounters should have some narrative to them no matter what. Whether that's in the sense of if they're important to the story, then they've already got narrative, right? But if you're rolling random encounters, how do you make something that in its name and is inherently random, how do you make that matter and how do you make that part of the story? And what we're going to talk about, and the reason I wanted Wesley to come and join me, is how you can do that with every single encounter, regardless of how important it is, how you can inject bits of story and bits of character into the time when the game, you know, really, really slows down, and typically none of that happens. So Wes,
hello.
You're gonna. I'm the way I'm thinking about this. You're gonna give me more of a player's perspective.
Yes,
I can jump in on that, of course, but I will also throw in the DM perspective. And it's been said, and it's been said on this podcast, I'm sure, that you are a master of roleplay.
I hate everyone saying this because...
But it's true. Deal with it. Just accept it. So how do you... And I think it's fair to say you like roleplay more than you like combat, don't you?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Put that out there now. I will squeeze my roleplay to my combat. Like, we have full combat sessions. I'm like, I'm getting my roleplay, guys. I'm going to get it somewhere.
Yeah. So how do you do that then? How do you make sure that your roleplay and your story elements are always forefront, even when you're doing combat?
So during combat, I think the main thing you have to always take into consideration is what the hell is your character going to do? If they're a more proud and opulent character, if they want to like run into the fray and get in the enemy's face and taunt them, or they're more cowardly and will want to stay around the back and just like fling spells from behind a tree, you know, or tactical. That could be called tactical rather than cowardly. But yeah, I think it really does depend on the character. I've got like a couple examples.
Okay.
So I know in our Descent campaign, this was just as a little bit of context. My character Drell had just had all their memories taken away. And the wonderful Kla'ath had basically done a whole speech to Drell, without his memories, saying, okay, if I tell you to jump, you jump. If I tell you to run, you run.
Yeah.
And at this point, the character had just begun learning magic. They were a rogue who multiclassed into wizard. And some of their spells were still failing. So I was making it so sometimes I would roll on a chart. And if it got above a certain number, it would work. If it got below, it wouldn't. That's another roleplay element into combat. But the one thing that I do remember is... basically, we were having a skirmish on our... I always forget the name of our war machine.
We have an infernal war machine. We were on the big car. We have the... Oh, what is it? The demon grinder.
The demon grinder, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there was a combat going on top, and we made a safe word earlier about Drell just using a spell.
Yeah.
And there was no context that Kla'ath gave.
I think Kla'ath said something like, oh, I didn't know you could do magic. When I say do magic, thinking that you do something big and important and special.
Exactly. And just being like a level 1 wizard, level 2, I can't remember which. And just having their memories wiped and just saying, like, if I say jump, it's like, okay. And I literally just put a fog cloud on the middle of a melee fight.
Yep.
Screwing everyone over.
Yeah, even us.
Yeah, no, it screwed everyone. Like, it wasn't like, yay, go team. It was, okay, let's do this thing. So I think you have to be careful with doing stuff like that, because if it's so bad that your entire party is screwed over and it's going to be a TPK, maybe rein it back a bit. But it was more of a story element, and it was like, well, this is This is what they told me to do.
Yeah, you were doing what you were asked, and it's true. I mean, like if you've got a group that all of their enjoyment comes from the tactical play, and then you do something that's not tactical, then you're probably going to piss some people off. But we foremost and forefront are about story, and I think that was a perfect example of us putting story first, because you did it, and no one at that table was like, oh, for fuck's sake, Wesley, now I can't use my Eldritch Blast. But so I mean, we always say this. I always say it's a bit of a cop out answer. You've got to know your demographic. You've got to know who you're playing with and what they like. But yeah, and that's a really good example, I think, of like doing something that generates story within combat. Because let's be honest, and I know you've probably got something to say around this as well, so I'll try not to sidetrack us. But how many times do you in combat actually say what your character would say? Most of the time, your conversation is as a player, not as the character, right? Because you're in combat and you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll move 30 feet. So you're thinking more of the player brain. But as soon as you did that, we started reacting as our characters, because it's such a character-driven thing to get wrong.
It's Roberts. I'll just do this.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. I've said it.
And here's the thing, like, we all remember that now. We all remember that encounter because of that. Not because, we had a really cool fight on a demon grinder. I mean, we did have a really cool fight on a demon grinder, but that's not the thing we remember. The thing we remember is the bloody fog cloud that just
got shoved in the random of a melee encounter, and everyone was like, oh, well, we can't see.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that is a good example. And I think on a smaller scale then, because I know that there are, and I guess going into what I was saying, there are times when we, at our table, I've been the player and I've been the DM in this, and as a DM, I don't really mind. It's not a problem, I don't think, for me. Like, if you want to talk in character, if you want to talk in player, that's fine. But as players, and when I'm a player, I enjoy having to say, like, I need to come up with a scenario to make this make sense. But let's say I want to hold my action to let off a fireball when everyone's clear. As my character, I need to say that. I need to put my intentions out. And I love when other players do that, so that there are little bits of interaction during combat.
Just between the characters, just as like a sort of teamwork, really, between the group. And you can see that happening. Yeah,
definitely. And I think one of the reasons it doesn't happen is because there is, like, when you get into combat, you go into that brain of, okay, I've got an action, I've got a movement, I've got a bonus action, and then if you're an advanced player, you might be thinking, oh, I've got a free interact with object, or oh, I've got a free, this or whatever. But you don't have here's how much you can say during your turn.
Yeah. And it's always a little constraint when you have that 6-second rule as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, every turn takes 6 seconds. So it's like, well, how much can you say in 6 seconds? But, like, I mean, look, like,
people would be talking to each other at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So it becomes a bit wishy-washy.
It's like, if Wesley's on his turn and he's saying something, can I reply? And I'm like, well, if you can, you haven't said anything this round, which is, 6 seconds, so I guess so.
Yeah. I think we, as a group, give it a little bit more liberty, because we do want to squeeze that roleplay in as much as we can.
Yeah, I think for me, when I'm a DM, my rule for that at the table is, look, combat, when I imagine combat, when I'm a player, and when I'm a DM, but when I'm a player, I'm imagining everything happening at the same time, because it is, right? When you think of it, D&D doesn't happen in turns. In the game world, it happens all at the same time. So it makes sense for you to be able to talk when you're having a fight. But I mean, if situationally, if you're grappled and bound and gagged or something, God, what games are you playing? But
for starters,
we are in hell. if you're if you're in a situation where you can't talk, you're unconscious, then you can't talk. But otherwise, I would let players converse. I would just say, bear in mind, a round is 6 seconds, so you can't have a full conversation. And if they start getting to the point where they're going back and forth, say, okay, that's as far as you get. You have to wait now. And I think our table's pretty good at that. And
I think a lot of us are like, can I spend my reaction to say something? So, we value it.
I allow that though. Like if someone says to me, like when players say to me, oh, I haven't attacked, or I haven't, like, all I've done is move, can I use my action to speak? I'll be like, all right, and I'll let them say a little bit more. Because yeah, sure, you've not used your action, it's just going to go away. I'll let you exert the energy to say more than you were going to say. But still, it doesn't end up being like a whole conversation. It still just ends up being like, instead of saying, get out of the way because you want a fireball, it ends up being like, I'm going to fireball over there. Everybody get the fuck out of the way. Because then it's a bit more directed. But for us, and I mean, tell me what you think, because you've played in these games, but I think we do it quite loosey-goosey, and that works because we know, just from the years that we've been playing D&D together, what the boundaries are.
Yeah, I'd say we are. I think it is because, as I mentioned before, we are so roleplay heavy focused as well. That we do have this much looser, like, it's combat, we'll let some things slide to try and get whatever in there. And I think it just adds to the enjoyment a little bit. I mean, the rules are there, obviously, because it is a game at the end of the day. But prioritizing, player enjoyment as well is something you've got to keep in mind.
I mean,
depends what group you're with as well, because one group may be very hard on the rules, they want to stick to everything. Another group may be a little bit more looser with that.
That comes down to, I think, like the rule of cool conversation and stuff like that. And like, for me, I always say the rules are there for a reason. I'm not going to just completely disregard a rule because the rules are what make it a game, right? That's the game side of D&D. And I will add and manipulate and take away and change those rules to make the game work best for our group. But there are rules for a reason. That's the game side of D&D. Having said that, if in the heart of combat, someone says, like the other day, what was it? I said to James, we were fighting, what was that? I was fighting that creature. It's like a big snake, and then it's got like a woman's body, but it was a gnoll and it had like 6 arms.
This was in Descent's campaign. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, in the
yes. Yeah.
flash forward thing.
And you wanted to trap them in the jar.
Yeah, so I had a magic jar that had no creature in it. But I was grappled by this creature, and I also had a water skin on my belt that was full of water from the sticks. I had something that was full of water.
There was something full of water of the sticks. I think it was a vial that kept it longer.
Yeah, it was a special hag's jar. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was like, James, what I want. He was like, James, here's what I want to do, but the action economy doesn't really work with it because I'm grappled. I've got a shield and a sword in my hand, so there's no way that even with a free interact with object that I could, even if I drop my sword, which is fine because it would just disappear because it's hexblade. There's no way I could then lean over, do the water, and get the jar. So technically, in mechanics, I can't do this. But what I want to do is just cut open the pouch so that the water splashes on them, and then pull open the jar and use it against them. I then realised afterwards that I didn't need to use the water because that doesn't actually help with the save against the magic jar. But he was like, yeah, I'd absolutely 100% allow that. That's fine because that's dope as fuck. That's cool.
The rule of cool down.
And like with the hexblade as well, like technically it's an action to summon in my blade. But there are times when I say to James, like, I want to interact with an object on my turn. Would you allow me to, like, can I just bamf my sword away and then bamf it back because I'm not getting a bonus from that? I'm just like dropping it and picking it back up. And he's like, yeah, fine.
I feel like you always remember those moments more than generic spells as well.
Yeah.
Like you always remember the spells that get a good effect or like a good result. And it's a really interesting one. Rather than just it's a fireball that did damage, right? If it's a fireball and it wiped out like a small swathe of army, that makes you feel a lot cooler than just like a fireball hitting 2 things, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there's story moments in that too, and you know, going back to the topics, we've gone off a little bit, but
yeah,
I want to talk about how we put those story moments in. But before we do, Wesley, I need to talk to you about something. The reason I have brought you onto the podcast today is because you need help, my friend.
Clearly,
this is an intervention.
I'm deprived of something. What am I deprived of, Ben?
You need to stop rolling 1s and 2s on your dice, because I know we joke about it at the table, but it's really detrimenting the party.
Okay.
So what I would like
how
you
could
to
I
do,
fix this, Ben?
What I would like you to do is go to a reputable dice company like the Dice Dungeon, pick out a really nice set of dice and buy them, because I guarantee they will roll better than any of the dice that you have now, even the Dice Dungeon ones, because you've tainted them at this point. You and your curse have tainted them. So get a new set, use those on Saturday at our next game, and I guarantee you'll roll 20s.
Okay.
And to make it even better,
the better, fancier set, right?
It can be any set you like. I don't care which set you buy, as long as do you not buy 3 sets. Just set yourself up for the next 3 like weeks, because let's face it, well, as soon as you touch a set of dice, they get cursed.
I mean, it's true.
And look, to make it easier on your wallet, I will give you 10% off with the code We Speak Common at checkout. Okay?
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I'll go there. It will make a
difference. Okay. Well, I mean, wait until the end of the episode. But
oh yeah, okay. We'll wait.
Yeah,
right. I was ready.
I'll send you the link that I put in the description of the episode to you can just follow it and do all the stuff then.
Sounds
but
good.
I think that will help.
It'll destroy my bad luck.
Who knows at this point, mate? That's not a bit. Wesley rolls awfully low all the time.
I have my moments of good rolls.
You do.
Then it goes back.
You do.
I have
random moments.
So the worst thing is, it's become so frequent. I have now started, like, if I play a caster, I usually try and make Ben roll instead.
Yeah,
but Ben has been rolling really well.
This is the
against
thing.
me
See?
Specifically
because I've been using my new Dice Dungeon set.
Yeah, but you don't roll against anyone else like that, Ben. I'm a bard. I'm here for the crowd control, and every time I'm like, I'm gonna do this, Ben. Oh well, Wesley, I rolled
a 20
natural
on the
17.
Die. Yeah, sorry, buddy.
I rolled a natural 16 this time. Thanks, Ben. That's great.
I know.
So
good. Those darn Dice Dungeon dice, they roll too good. I don't have a bit for the other sponsor because it actually does fit very, very well into this episode. But if you are struggling to fit story into your encounters, one way to do it is with descriptive wording and descriptive writing. And if you're not very good at that, Describe, DSCRYB.com is the place to go. They've got creatures, which is a great one, environments, which is a great one, and spells. They're all great ones, funnily enough, for this, because if you are able to describe your magic leaving your players' hands, that is going to immerse people. So go and check Describe out. There is a load of scenes that you can get for free, but there's also a code. Just use the word common on checkout. That'll get you 10% off every single month if you want access to absolutely everything. And of course, the collection grows weekly, I believe. But that's
actually amazing, because that was the topic I wanted to bring forward, was describing your magic and your combat, like your fisticuffs or your sword or your maul.
Your fisticuffs?
Yeah, I don't know, you might run in there with your fist. There's some monks out there.
Nobody says fisticuffs anymore, Wesley. It's 2021, buddy.
Wow.
Nobody uses that word.
Come on, it's a word.
What does fisticuffs actually mean? Hey Siri, what does fisticuffs mean?
Fisticuffs means fighting with the fist.
Oh, it does actually mean fighting with your fists, all right?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
Okay, I got egg on my face.
It's 2020, apparently not using it.
Well, it's actually 2021. We're a year forward.
Okay, sorry, 2021. All right, fine.
But yeah, no. So how do you bring story into combat encounters is honestly, I think, is through making sure you've got descriptive elements for everything. And I've seen people say, I've seen different ways of doing this, but the way I do it is to make sure that I am linking my descriptions into the turns. So instead of saying the goblin runs forward, slashes at you 3 times, and misses on all 3 of them. He's a powerful goblin, apparently. Wesley, it's your turn. What do you want to do? What I say is, Claaf dodges a cut from the goblin high and low, who runs forward, stabs into him a couple more times, but manages to miss because his blade is so short and stubby and rusty. Isa, I'm trying to think of one of your characters, Wesley, sorry. Isa, you look to the left just in time to see Claaf dodge out of the way of the 3rd blade. The goblin is 20 feet from you. There's an opening. What do you want to do? And you link that descriptive wording and that character name and that environmental kind of factors. If you can put smells, it's hard to do it on the spot, but if you can put smells and sights or sensory things in there too, then you're going to grip your players' imaginations and draw them back into the world, which during combat is hard to do at times.
Yeah, sometimes you have to do the initial where an enemy would approach someone. You'd go partially into that description, and then you'd do all the rolls as you have to, and then you'd finish up afterwards, how many slashes they go for, etc.
Yeah, I'm going to run forward, I'm going to use my 2 attacks, and then so that's my movement, my attack, my bonus action will be to, give the goblin the middle finger.
Especially with spells. I usually have this awful habit because I want to describe it all, but I know it might fail. So I usually go for initial description. So for hypnotic pattern, I know there's meant to be swirls and patterns and stuff, but Drell, for example, he's more of he's just started learning magic, and he usually before that was very into runes.
Yeah.
And paper and just writing everything about that. So usually with stuff like that, I would describe him taking a piece of paper that had a carved rune onto it, so not carved, but written rune, and then throwing it into the air, and it would just explode into pieces as suddenly sigils begin flashing in random patterns. And then obviously I would ask Ben to do the rolls for everyone, and then I'll fail.
I think there's a lot of give or take with it as well, because when I'm a wizard, I like to, as a player, I like to describe my own spells, and when I'm as the DM, I like to have control of the descriptions and keep control of the flow, but allow players to have their own moments to throw stuff in that's about their character. So I would describe the goblin running up to someone, and we said, we'd be okay, what do you want to do? You might be I'm going to attack it 3 times with my sword and then move back 20 feet. And I say, okay, roll your die. Yeah, that's a hit. That's how much damage. Yep, that's that. Yep, that's that much damage. Lovely. Okay, you back up, opportunity tag, roll it, do all the mechanical stuff. And I say, oh, how are you attacking it? And they might say, I'm just going to slash it. I'll be okay, cool, I've got freedom. But if I say, how are you attacking it? And they say, oh, I'm going to pull out my father's cutlass and aim for the forearm as it blocks, I'll be awesome. So I'll let them describe it, and then I will take that and sort of re-describe it, but link it into the next person's turn, so that then I can do that thing where I say, I don't know, player number 5, you see all of that happen, you turn to the left and you can see that goblin snarling through his teeth at your friend or something, just to re-deliver the exposition, but also to link it in and make sure that player gets the chance to put their characterization behind it too.
Yeah. I really enjoy how you make it flow, and I love your goblin noises as well.
My goblin noises?
Yeah.
I don't remember. What are my goblin noises?
No, in the Team of Annihilation. I don't know if they were goblins or not. But
the grung.
The grung. Yes.
Yeah, the grung.
They were amazing.
I'll be honest, I worked very hard on my grung noises.
I loved them.
They are my favourite. I'm not going to do them now.
But I'm really disappointed that you won't do it, though, because I feel everyone needs to hear it.
I'm not in the right frame of mind. I'll get it wrong. I'll get it wrong.
Okay, fine.
I'll next time we do it, I'll record a bit. Next time you fight Grung, I'll record a bit for the podcast or something. I don't know.
Because now you're going to be put on the spot. You're just going to absolutely fail it.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a bad thing. So this is something that I'm aware of that I need to be better of. If I keep if I've got a spell that I use frequently,
Mm.
like usually I go into the description the first time because it's a new spell,
Yeah.
and I run with it. And I'm like, look at this thing, guys! This is amazing. Or you can hear like discordant notes or like a harp disjarring as a bard plays, whatever. And then as I progress through the campaign, it becomes a little less
Yeah.
pizzazzy.
I'm just gonna
Because I've
do
used
my
it.
dissonant whispers, Ben. That's what I'm gonna do. All right.
So I've used it 3 times this fight already.
Yeah. But I don't think that's a bad thing, because it's like you don't want to hold up by describing the same thing every time. But wizards are the ones that I think wizards and well, just spellcasters in general, actually, to be honest, I think
like main casters, right?
yeah, main casters are the ones that get the most fun out of it, because you really can describe anything. Like when I play Orlo, I will describe what he's doing with his spells, and I'll describe him using using components and somatics and all that kind of stuff. But it's about putting in, and this is the point of this topic,
Flavor of your character.
yeah, if you put that flavor in, you can tell story through that encounter. And like the one that comes to mind recently that does both, that does flavor and story, and I think both of us love this moment, was in Descent. So Claath is he's a Hexblade Paladin, and he has the Shield of the Hidden Lord, which is no longer the Shield of the Hidden Lord because he's freed the Hidden Lord, but that has the ability for him to do a fireball once a day.
Yeah.
And Drell is a wizard who now has access to fireball. And we were running, trying to save some people. Sorry, excuse me, that was gross. We were running towards a group of people. We were going to try and save them. And there was a group of, what were they? Were they gnolls? I think they were gnolls. No, they were demons. Demons.
So there was a mixture of creatures. I think there's Drugas in there as well. Or Drugas. Yeah, there was a lot of them, right?
There was a lot of stuff. And we knew that they were, they're resistant to fire, but they...
Oh, it's Draugr, right? Draugr.
Not Draugr. You're thinking of... I know what you're thinking of, but I cannot think of it. Not Hezru.
I swear it was. It's like either way, they're resistant to fire.
Anyway, they're a demon, they're resistant to fire. Most demons are. But there was a group of them, so it was a prime opportunity to do an AoE, and I knew that we said as a character, we said as players, oh, well, if we both fireball them, it'll be like one fireball, so maybe that'll kill them all.
Yeah, I think Drell also said in character.
Yeah, you said
Because
something.
I had hypnotic pattern them before because basically they were going into a cavern and there's a lady trapped in it. So we got the lady out and then it was like fireball opportunity because that's the only AoE we have.
Yeah, which is great
like,
for Descent when everything's resistant to fire.
They're all resistant. So we said in character, I think Drell shouted to Claath to try and fireball it, right?
Yeah, you said something like... Yeah, and you said you were going to ready your action for when Claath moved to do something. So Claath started running forward, and that then triggered your action. And you were like, okay, so you cast your fireball, and it went off. It hit all of them, but it was really lackluster. It was like because it wasn't. It wasn't full damage.
Not a good
anyway.
roll.
Yeah,
it was not a good roll anyway.
It wasn't full damage anyway because they're resistant, but then it wasn't a good roll anyway because typical Wesley. So. But you'd done the beautiful thing of describing your spell and the paper and the fire, bead of fire flying out and the explosion. So then I was like, right, okay, well, now it's my turn because that happened on my turn. So I had Claath running forward and he held up the shield of the Hidden Lord whose face is on it. And he said something like, oh, let's try that again. Something quippy.
Yeah, it was that, I think. Yeah, exactly.
And I described the Hidden Lord. The face has the shield has the Hidden Lord's face on it. His face moving and contorting, and the explosion of the fire as it coalesced above in a big cloud, reforming, sucking into a small bead of fire and then dropping back down and exploding
and then
for a
going down
second
again.
time.
We're just like, this is amazing,
Which is really cool. I mean, the damage
then you
was
rolled
still
really low.
shit. Yeah, the damage was still shit. We did kill them all because we fireballed
No, there was
them
one
twice.
alive. There was one still standing.
Okay, well, that's still
Because
pretty
I remember
good.
him walking over and it's like, why are you still here?
But it was still pretty good. But like the point
It
was
looks-
like,
from like a narrative perspective, it was badass.
And it's-
from a combat, it was like
yeah, I mean, yeah, from a role side, it wasn't great, but from the storytelling side, it had aspects of your character in the fact that they've got to this point where they've learned how to do this big explosive magic. It had an aspect of my character coming forward and using his allegiance and work with the Hidden Lord to use this new power that he's got and to make you stronger. But then there's a big story element because at the start of the fucking campaign, we hated
each other.
Absolutely,
And now we're
hated each
working
other.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
So there are these story elements within this fluff. It's just making sure you take the opportunity to do it. And I want to say as well, like, massive shout out to James as a DM for just taking a back seat and letting you and I describe all of that. Because I said, okay, well, it's my turn. I'm going to start running forward and that's going to trigger Wesley. So he's going to do his thing. So then you took over and described your fireball. And James said, yep, that's going to, this many saved. So do your damage. And you did the mechanical bits. And then I took back over and described the whole shield, how it looked to reform the fireball. Like, I did all of that. And James just let me go with that. And that's good DMing because that's allowing not only... Because James has control of that narrative the whole time. James can come in and say, well, actually, here's what it looks like. But he doesn't because he's giving us the opportunity to put in our flavour and our storytelling on what's happening on our turns. And that is what's telling the story of us working together.
Which is great. Like, I love it so much.
That's got to be one of my all-time favourite D&D moments was that round.
Yeah.
That was
I
a
feel
good
like
time.
it's just because it was a lot of story elements as well, and it's like we're actually working together. Oh dear. I feel like we have gone a lot into the magic side of things and not touched on actual physical stuff, which I'll be brutally honest, I find harder
Yes.
to describe.
I think it depends on like who you are, not only as a player, because if you play more martial classes, you'll be used to that kind of combat, but what you like as well. Like you and I both like the magic side of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, with oh my god, I keep forgetting the names of my characters, Ben. This is not something I should be doing.
That's not good.
Nevin,
Yeah.
there we go. Just takes a moment to come back. With Nevin, I remember one scene on the boat, because he's a main caster, but when you're like level 2, level 1, I can't remember.
Yeah, level 1 or 2.
But on the boat, one of the people had been like tossed over to our side of the boat, and Nevin had nothing left, so he just sort of went over. He's a very poncy tiefling.
Yes, he is.
That's the best way to describe him. Like, oh yes. And he just ran over with the rapier and like looked away disgustedly as he went, oh, and just tried to like stab them like really far away. It hit. And I think I ended up killing them.
Yeah, I think you did.
And it was just like a moment of like absolute disgust having to get that close and use a blade, and just like, oh, that went well.
But
and
this
just
is-
sort of like shaking it off the blade.
This is the thing though, like when I read the Witcher series, I never understand all of the like sword fighting terms. So when I'm describing D&D, I'm like, oh yeah, he does a half turn and stabs in through underneath their arm. Like I describe it in a very layman's way, and I think that's the best way I can do it. When I played Timble, the ranger mouse, I used his size to describe everything. So like he would run and slide underneath the zombie ogre, and he'd jump and stab
because you have a
as
different
he
angle, don't
twisted.
you, to
Yeah.
work from.
So I always try and find something that I can connect to that's evocative in my mind's eye when I'm imagining it. And for me, that's like the size difference, and it's like imagining it ridiculously large and small.
I usually also go for the weapon.
Yeah.
So having a maul, you'd be cracking them around the skull, right? The rapier, I got really fed up describing a rapier because it's just like a poke. Like I've gone through all the locations, guys. I've gone for the eyeballs. I've gone for like a chest lung poke.
Oh god, the eyeballs. I poke him with my spiky sword. Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it.
No, the rapier is a difficult one, to be fair.
I don't know where to go for anymore, guys. When I get a killing blow, I can get a bit more out of him.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to stab him in an artery. Yeah. But I agree. I think with combat, proper melee combat, it's a little bit trickier. If you've got a unique weapon, like if you're fighting with a whip, you can say like, oh, I'm gonna whip, and I'm gonna use my disarming strike as a fighter to crack the whip around his sword and yank it free from his hand. Like that's when it becomes
cool.
Yeah, that's when it's more like, oh, okay,
like hitting someone with your shield. I've done that before when I've had a shield. It's like for flair. It's just for some role play. I'm just gonna bonk him around the face with a shield, give him like a good old kiss with it.
Yeah.
And then obviously use my main action when it's just 2 weapon attacks, but it's more flair rather than just like swipe.
Yeah.
You
And if you find that you're doing the same thing every round, because that's optimal, and like, I mean, when Joe was playing high level, he was like loosing 6 arrows around in our like one shot that's no longer a one shot, and he would be like, I'm just gonna shoot 6 times again. And like that'd be fine, but when he got a kill and James said, "Okay, how are you gonna kill him?" He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna knock an arrow, pull it back, and sort of you watch him level the bow and then loose it and it fly true through the sky." And like he would describe it then, so you don't have to do it every round. Like when I'm Claff, sometimes I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna fire off three Eldritch Blasts," and if it's a round where I've done Eldritch Blasts, loads this combat, I might say, yeah, you just watch him as he's running. He just swings his sword 3 times and bolts of energy fire off them. And 3 of them hit. Yeah. Or 1 of them hits and 2 of them miss or something.
I feel like we also have a similar bad tendency of when like a combat has gone on for a long time or it's been a long day. And we're just like...
Unless it's a combat that I'm really into. Like that combat we did where we nearly... TPK'd in Descent.
Well, that gets exciting, right? And you're like,
okay, then.
We're going. But when it's just a long combat, and you don't feel like you're like you're not feeling like you're gonna die anytime soon. It's just a really lengthy combat, and you're like, oh, let's just get this over.
Yeah, I'm gonna just blast 3 times. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna fireball him. Yeah, cool. How many does that hit? Yeah. They're saved. Yeah, okay,
just
cool.
Go for a stab, guy.
Yeah, it's 26 points damage.
That does happen.
Yeah.
As much as I know you put in so much effort to try and stop that from happening. If people have had like a long day, they're not feeling as like up to it. It can happen.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't take it too much to heart. Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to talk about then is like actual story elements in combat and how to use those. And I don't want to go too deeply on it, but there are a couple of things here. One is if you really want to make sure there's story elements in your encounters, make them dynamic, as in we've talked before about having dynamic environments that change during combats.
Yeah.
Have something like that in a combat. Maybe you've got a MacGuffin. I mean, it's always a MacGuffin, isn't it? But maybe you've got a MacGuffin that someone's trying to get. Okay, well, the story element is that the MacGuffin is part of this fight and it's moving around the encounter. And so people are trying to grab it during the fight. Or maybe one encounter I saw created by someone online was a fight with a giant spider. But to kill the giant spider, you had to, like, it was resistant to every kind of damage from its front, but it had a weakness behind it. So if you could get behind the spider, you could deal like double damage. But the point was that to make the encounter easier, you had to kite it away and then hit it from behind. And the whole encounter had like the map, I'm trying to describe it without you being able to see it, was kind of like it was like a square room, but it had a ring around the outside, so you could do like a ring around and go in circles, so you could try and kite the spider, and it had like bits in the middle where you could cut through. And the spider had a nest of eggs, and it was like, well, if you can get the eggs, you can get the spider to come after you. And then there were like fire traps in the dungeon as well. And like the story is, well, this spider, this giant oversized spider, has taken over, and someone sends you in to go and get it. And the story is that you've got to kill this spider, And the story element is that the spider has withstood every attack that the village has put on it because it's hardened and strong and all that kind of stuff. Well, your story is there. That combat, that encounter already has story in it. But when you get into it and you find out that it's got a nest and it's just protecting its eggs, well, there's another story beat. When you find out that if you take its eggs, it will follow and run after you, there's another story beat. You're seeing emotion there. And then there's the cool fun mechanics of having to like kite it to be able to actually kill it. So there's loads of different ways you can build story beats into encounters like that. It's just like foreplanning.
The terrain is a big one. I know Joe made us fight on a cliff edge.
Yeah, we've talked about this one a lot. Yeah.
With creatures trying to blow us off with like wind gusts or whatever they were. Dangerously dangerous. I know another, like a similar one to what you just described there, is the Xanatha fight, where I placed an elemental, not as a damaging tool.
Yes.
In front of the giant fishbowl. Silgar. And I had the elemental attack the fishbowl to take Xanatha's ire away from everyone. Because suddenly Silgar was in trouble.
And I think that's what won you the fight, because you guys were doing pretty well, because you'd been planning for like 20 plus sessions. You knew that your campaign was going to end with killing Xanatha. That was the goal. And so you'd been planning for it for a long time, and you had flight potions and you had invisibility and you know, oh, well, he can't target me with an eye ray if he can't see me, and all this kind of like cheesy little stuff that you'd planned for. And I was like, yeah. So you had taken a lot of the danger out of that encounter already. And then when he started to get hits off that looked like someone got hit by...
They were deadly.
Yeah, someone got hit by his disintegration ray and like, or one of it, or his death ray, but it didn't kill them, but it was like, okay, if he gets hit by that again, that's outright dead, no saving you. And so for you to pull in, conjure an elemental and distract him using a story beat, the fact that he loves his pet fish, oh, chef's kisses. Wow.
I mean, I saw the opportunity.
But this is the thing. That's a player decision. That story that's been brought into a combat by player action. And as a DM, I could have gone, yeah, okay, Xanatha starts focusing on the elemental. Or I could do what I did and say, Xanatha lets out this awful, grotesque wail and shouts Silgar's name, and you watch all of his eyes twist and turn towards the elemental. Like, and you start describing it, and you describe the pain in Xanatha's eye, and you get emotional about it.
And you know you've done fucked up, because if we don't get out of here, we're dead.
Oh yeah, if you weren't dead at that before then, there was no getting out of that encounter there. He would have chased you to the ends of the earth.
Oh dear. It was a lot of fun, because I knew in that situation specifically it was, I need something to tank because people are gonna die like next turn. And just shoving an elemental in the room will not do anything. So let's shove the elemental in the room and then make it attack the most precious thing to Xanatha.
Do you know what I need to do? What I haven't asked Joe, because in our version of Faerun, because obviously my world evolves over the course of the campaigns, Cowrie is now in charge of the locksmiths who were previously the Xanatha's Guild. He never told me what he did with Silgar.
Or Xanatha.
Or Xanatha's corpse, actually.
Because he's... Yeah. I mean, well, Xanatha's trapped in the mind ring as well.
Yeah, Xanatha's soul is trapped inside his mind ring, which he has on his hand. He's wearing that.
So he has the Xanatha's body... He has Xanatha's mind, and he has Silgar. So
I'm definitely going to write something around that.
Maybe put him on show.
Maybe he comes back.
He fed him to the dragon, the bronze dragon in the water.
Xanatha would be coming up with a way to free himself from the mind ring. Like maybe he's trying to corrupt
It's going to be pretty
Cowrie.
difficult, though.
Yeah, it would be, but there will be people who are still loyal to Xanatha.
Sympathise with Xanatha.
Yeah,
and we'll try and get it off him.
Oh, it's interesting. When Joe can play more frequently, I want to, which is a long way off, so there's no stress, but I want to do the next stage of those characters' stories where, I mean, you finished at level 8, like I want you all to come back at like level 11 maybe, and it's been like 3 years, and like James's character is basically the Black Staff but hasn't taken the position, and you know, Phoebe's character is pretty much in charge of the Zentarum or the Black Network, and like all these kind of things. Like you've all spent the last 2 years like focusing on that stuff, and then you get brought together back for another threat. That would be cool.
Dun, 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 dun. It'd be cool. Yeah, I really like that idea. And there's plenty of threats going around. So.
Oh yeah, there's always something. Yeah, no stress there. Well, there'll be something to fight.
Yay!
I think we've talked about a lot of things today, Wesley. I'm not gonna lie.
We went off topic a bit,
but I think we've given a decent overview of some ways to put story into combat encounters. I think the main thing is use your exploration and your explanatory chat. Use your exposition, as it were. I get the word right eventually. Use that and use it all the time to not only bring people back into the moment, but to put those story beats in. Let your players use theirs, and when you're thinking about your actual story and what's happening in encounters, drop elements in. Maybe the random encounter with a goblin, well, that goblin knows the hobgoblin boss that the characters are trying to find, and he wails something as he dies. You know, nothing that's going to change the story, but little beats that characters could pick up on.
Yeah,
things like that.
And then from player perspective, to try and aid your DM in the loving crafting of this story and this fight, just make sure to do what your character would do. Just run into the fray if you're a big barbarian, or whichever. Try and be cocky, make a mistake if you're that cocky of a character, and just describe what you're doing and just go for it. Just run with it, and then put your flair on it, because you'll have some flair, and if you're bad at the beginning, don't worry, because you'll get bloody better at it.
Yeah.
You will. Yeah. It's just a lot of practice.
And if you need that inspiration, if you are a spellcaster, Describe has loads of spells already written out for you on there, so those are really good for players as well as DMs.
Yeah. I personally like putting flair on it, but that's, you know.
Yeah.
Like, just a little bit. You go. Characters usually have themes, right? You spice it up.
Yeah, exactly. Because let's face it, we've all been playing this game for what? How long has 5e been out now?
Oh,
7 years? I don't know. It's been out for a while.
I don't know.
It's been out for a while. We've been using the same spells for a long time now, so you've got to spice it up.
Yeah.
Wesley, thank you very, very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I will be getting you on again in the future, so we will speak to you again soon, for sure. But in the meantime, I can't wait to play more D&D with you.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for the next couple of sessions.
I think our next session is next weekend, isn't it? Unless we get a descent in. Oh, imagine if we get descent in this week.
Oh,
I might have to ask James if he's ready. He might not be, but
I would be very excited.
I am very excited for that. We can dream. All right, buddy.
Big boss time. Sariel. There'll be conversations about that. I am 100% certain.
We're gonna kill her.
I
want to kill her.
We're gonna get TPK'd.
I don't think we can kill her. I really want to, but I don't think we can. But Claff will try. That's the problem. So
we'll see what happens.
Oh, next time on. Cool. Thanks, buddy. Have a great rest of your day, and I will speak to you soon.
You as well. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.